Ever since my daughter was in middle school, she gave me the nickname Podge. And ever since then, that's what my daughter calls me. That's what all of her friends call me. We were always super close, and I was really worried when she was going off to college that maybe we'd grow apart a little bit more. So I just sort of racked my brain. What could I do to try to stay as connected to her as possible? So I came up with the idea that every Sunday, I would record a 5-minute episode about the kind of topics we might normally talk about. Send it to her Monday morning, and then she could watch it on her way to campus. I thought it'd be a good idea to resurrect that. They'll be the kinds of topics that I would talk to my now 25-year-old daughter, or the younger version of myself, or people that I mentor, or maybe you. Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Coffee with Podge. So today's topic is going to be about paid coaching and mentorship. So when I think about my own journey, one of my frustrations is that, over the years, I've had for relatively brief periods of time, I've had some professional mentorship. The people who I had professional mentorship from, they weren't necessarily well-rounded people. So their personal life, their health and fitness, things like that weren't really in great shape. Though professionally, they were helpful to me. And I've actually complained about that. And eventually, I almost gave up on trying to find, that mentor, that more holistic mentor. And when I realized, it's funny, I've realized it doing my podcast because so many of the people that I've interviewed have spent an incredible amount of money over the years on both coaching and mentorship. And it's funny, the way I used to look at it, I think I had it completely backwards. I mean, if there's, I know I asked the question on some of my podcasts, hey, if you could go back in a time machine and, talk to yourself, the younger version of yourself, what advice would I give you? Would you give yourself? And I'll tell you right up, no doubt about it in my mind, that the advice I would give myself is get some paid coaching and mentorship, because ultimately it's a huge time accelerator. Again, you can always make more money. You can't make more time. And so, just kicking myself that I didn't do it. So it's funny, one of my goals for 2025 is to do a TED Talk. I was doing a podcast with a guy who had told me that over the last 9 years, he spent a little bit over $1 million on paid coaching and mentorship, and how probably had 10x'd his wealth and success. It's funny, the very next day, I had bought this very inexpensive course on how to basically prepare and apply for TED Talks and all that. And there's this upsell that was very expensive, like close to $30,000, where they basically guarantee that you'll get on a TED Talk stage, and they help you through the entire process, and they do all of the work. And it's quite a bit of work because there's 100 events a year. You have to apply to a huge number of them. There's a whole bunch of iterations you have to do. You still have to do all the work and give the folks that are doing the actual applying and replying and all that, all the information they need to complete the applications and so forth. Still a lot of work involved, but a tiny fraction. And I think if I hadn't just done the podcast the day before I had that conversation, I'm like, oh, well, 30 grand compared to $1 million, that's nothing. But as I thought about it, it's funny. I used to think that if I had to pay someone for their coaching or mentorship, that it made it less valuable. And now I realize that that's completely backwards, because if I'm paying someone, now their goals and incentives and mine are perfectly aligned. If someone's acting as my mentor just out of their goodwill, and they have 10 things to do that day, and, 9 of them are, paying them and I'm not, maybe I fall to the bottom of that list. But this person who's a TED Talk, they've gotten over, my TED Talk coach, they've gotten over 200 people on stage. They want to make it 201. And so their incentives and mine are perfectly aligned. They give me my money back if they don't get me on stage. Everything's perfectly aligned. I had someone who had been on a TED Talk that was just coaching me as a mentor. Our goals wouldn't be nearly as aligned out of the kindness of their heart, and they certainly would do their best. But then I started to realize, I got to be doing more of that. So I guess long-winded way of me saying that if you can find the right coach, the right mentor, you want to learn about real estate, you want to learn about investment strategies, you want to learn about crypto, you want to learn about happiness, running a business, whatever it might be. If you can find someone that you connect with and you feel like their content is good and they're adding a lot of value, you really should think about it, because it's definitely a huge life hack. And like I said, I probably among them, my top 5 regrets in my life are that I didn't do it sooner. Anyway, hope you found it useful. See you next week. Coffee with Podge.